Hey, hola, salam justo. In this video, I'm gonna teach you about what is listening, cognitive part of listening, aim of listening, problem in listening, and how to improve your English skill by watching movie. Okay, so let's get to the explanation.
First is definition of listening. Listening is where a listener listens to what a speaker is saying, and the listener would try to understand and interpret the given information from the speaker. Listening gives information to people so that they can develop the necessary information to comprehend and use a language. With listening, people mean the information that they have received in their mind before they speak to one another or write. The information in which people have researched is easier to be retained using listening. According to Richard, the primary purpose of listening in second language learning is to understand what is being spoken, meaning that if the listener are able to capture and understand the main idea and the information that are being given by the speakers, they could start using second language more fluently. The prospect of listening is to provide input that would prompt the development of the second language proficiency. The main purpose of listening is to make people maintain social interaction between each other and also understanding spoken discourse. Brown has stated that listening is a product of building and analyzing the connotation from both verbal and non-verbal input. In conclusion, listening could trigger the development of the second language so that the second language learner can build, analyze, and maintain social interaction using their listening ability. The second one is cognitive part of listening. Listening also emphasizes of grammatical and phonological configuration in which being used to complete the relationship among elements of sentence. Listeners seek to comprehend spoken discourse by decoding a series of sound into words. The listener that assemble the words that are linked to the generate phrase. Finally, the listener are able to make a complete sentence. According to Richard again, on the top on the bottom up of the two cognitive part of listening, it contains assembling meaning from the smallest unit of the spoken language to the large one in linear style. Furthermore, the top down of the cognitive part of listening is about how past knowledge can be beneficial for a learner because prior knowledge can help students reduce the amount of misunderstanding in regard to the meaning of the sentence. Richard stated that on the other hand, the top-down processing state to comprehending meaning as proposed by the speakers by means of schemata or structure of knowledge in the mind. In conclusion, for learner to have great listening comprehension, not only they need to be able to decode a series of sound and turn it into a sentence, but they also need to use their prior knowledge so that the learner would be able to recognize the sentence perfectly without any misinterpretation of what the sentence are supposed to mean. Number 3 is aim of listening. The aim of teaching listening comprehension is to help learners deal with listening in real life. There are a huge variety of diverse types of listening in real life. For example, listening to the announcement in station or airport, listening to the radio, watching a film, listening to a talk or lecture, and talking on a telephone-based conversation. Furthermore, there are a divergence between listening and hearing. Hearing is a recognition of sound, for example, the sound of television static or the sound that animal make, while listening implies some conscious thoughtfulness to a message given from the speaker. For example, identifying the main idea of presidential speech. In order to have a great listening comprehension ability, as Ross, as cited in Homer's Betty Marlena Xiaobing, state that listening includes an integration of several components which are discriminating between sound, recognizing word, identifying grammar, identifying a set of expression and utterance, using background knowledge, and lastly, recalling imperative thought and ideas. In conclusion, in order to be successful listener needs to not only hear and recognize a sound, but also they need to have the mental proficiency of processing information in which the speakers give by being able to classify expression, utterance, grammar, word, and also by using the past knowledge that the listener might have to further enhance the accuracy of their listening comprehension ability. Number 4 is problem in listening. There are numerous challenges that listeners face amid listening process, and the goal is to become more aware of this issue and attempt to resolve it. The problem that learner may encounter during listener process are hard to understand accent, lack of vocabulary, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, these are some of the other example of problem that learner face. The first one is atrocious sound quality due to the poor sound system quality that the teacher use. ASME states that the quality of the recorded material is extremely important and should be in the best quality possible, and the audio also need to be lucid so that the student can comprehend it better. The second problem is cultural divergence. It would be better if language learner is more familiar with the cultural knowledge of the language so that they could have a better understanding. If the task of the listening implies of completely different cultural material, then the learner could be in a major problem in regard of their comprehension. ASME also states that this particular problem is really essential due to the massive divergence between one culture to the other. It will be a decent idea to research about the divergence of the culture so that it would be easier to catch the purpose of the listening in which related to one's culture. The third one is accent. It might be hard for a language learner to comprehend a language if it has so many accents, and that is because its accents tend to have different pronunciation patterns. Unfamiliar accent, both native and non-native, can make an influence of listening comprehension. Bach states that when listeners hear an unfamiliar accent, such as Indian English, it will disrupt the English and the entire listening comprehension progression while also making comprehension truthful for the listeners. The fourth one is unfamiliar vocabulary. Many words have multiple different meanings, and if it is being used in an inappropriate place, then it will become confusing, especially for language learner. As a result, it can make listening arduous for the learner. Teaching should be aware and understand their student capabilities due to unfamiliar words would make listening activity takes a while because they have to think about the meaning of the word that they are hearing. According to ASME, listening would be easier for students if the listening material contains words that are common for them. Last but not least is the length of the speed of the audio. It will be hard for students to comprehend listening dialogue if the speaker is speaking too quickly. Therefore, the teacher needs to ensure that they are giving the right type of material to the correct level of the student. For example, teachers should not give a fast speaker listening dialogue audio to a beginner level student because the student might not be able to understand what the speaker in the audio is trying to say. ASME states that the level of student plays an essential role when they listen to a long audio and to keep all information in their head. In conclusion, teachers play a major role in the succession of student listening comprehension, and that is because in order for the student to be a successful listener, teachers need to be able to comprehend what the students needs. For example, some students may be able to comprehend an American English native speaker, while the other can only comprehend Australian English native speaker accent, or some students can only understand slow-paced listening audio, while the other can easily comprehend native speaker level of speaking speed. Finally, teachers also need to have adequate and also a good set of equipment so the sound of the audio that come out will be pristine and students can listen to the audio better. And number 5 is movie. Film such as painting and photography takes benefit of the subtle play of light and shadow. Films manipulate three-dimensional space in the same way the sculpture does. Film, like pantomime, focus on moving image, and the moving image in the film have rhythm, just like in dance. Film compound rhythms are similar to those music and poetry, and it communicates through imagery, metaphor, and symbol, much like poetry. Like drama, film uses both visual and verbal communication visually, through action and gesture verbally through dialogue. According to Thompson, as cited in First Salam, movie also called film, moving picture, motion picture, and photo play. In conclusion of this statement, film and movie in the same exact thing to its characteristic of being three-dimensional space. Focusing on movie, film and movie is the same exact thing due to its characteristic of being three-dimensional space, focusing on moving object, and lastly, it's also communicated by the depicting imagery, metaphor, and symbol. Movie could be a worthy cause a great authentic learner material for listening skills because it encompasses dialogue from a highly proficient English speaker, in which could contribute to an easier understanding of how they articulate words. According to Purcell, she claimed that students can gain a lot from watching English language-related movie. The learner can improve their listening skill as well as expanding their vocabulary and enhancing their pronunciation, and as well as improving their intonation. Furthermore, according to Roy, the studies showed that watching English movie has positive effect on enhancing listening skill as well as on speaking listening, and English movie also help to increase vocabulary. In short, movie can indeed improve listening comprehension ability because by watching an English movie, a student would understand how the native speaker of the particular language pronounce their word, and so the learner would be familiar with the pronunciation sound.
And I think that's all the explanation about listening. Thank you for watching.